To the uninitiated eye, Singapore appears as a gleaming testament to the triumph of the free market, a futuristic metropolis of steel and glass, biophilic architecture, and unparalleled efficiency. It is the Geneva of the East, a global financial hub that famously transformed from a resource-poor colonial outpost into one of the wealthiest nations on earth within a single generation. Yet, this narrative of economic miracle often obscures the far more intricate, deliberate, and sophisticated story of its political engineering. Singapore is a parliamentary democracy that holds regular, free elections with universal suffrage. Voting is mandatory. The Constitution is supreme. And yet, one party, the People's Action Party, PAP, has governed uninterrupted since 1959. This longevity is not merely a product of popularity or economic delivery, though both are undeniably foundational. It is the result of a meticulously constructed political operating system, a unique adaptation of the Westminster model that prioritizes stability, longevity, and executive dominance over the adversarial contestability found in the West. As we stand in 2026, looking back at the results of the 2025 general election, where the PAP secured a decisive 65.6% of the popular vote and 87 out of 99 elected seats, we must ask, how does this system actually work? It is not a dictatorship. The opposition holds a record 12 seats. But neither is it a liberal democracy in the Western tradition. It is something else entirely, a system of managed democracy where the rules of engagement are constantly patched, updated, and optimized by the incumbents. To understand the present, we must examine the source code. Singapore's political system is derived from the British Westminster model. It features a Prime Minister as head of government, a cabinet drawn from Parliament, and a separate head of state. In 1959, Singapore held its first general election under full internal self-government. The PAP, led by Lee Kuan Yew, achieved a landslide, winning 43 of the 51 seats with 54.08% of the popular vote. This moment was the big bang of Singaporean politics. It established the PAP not just as a participant, but as the architect of the nation. Following the acrimonious separation from Malaysia in 1965, the PAP's dominance became absolute. By the 1968 general election, the first as an independent republic, the main opposition party, the Barisan Sosialis, boycotted the polls. The result was a parliamentary monopoly that would last for over a decade. This period of unchallenged rule allowed the PAP to rewrite the software of the state without resistance. They established a culture of governance where the party and the state became increasingly synonymous, and where the national interest was defined largely by the executive. However, the architects of Singapore's system, particularly Lee Kuan Yew, were not content to rely on the vagaries of voter sentiment. They believed that a small, vulnerable island nation could not afford the inefficiencies of gridlock politics. Thus began a decades-long process of constitutional engineering designed to entrench competent government and insulate the state from the populism they saw destabilizing other post-colonial nations. The most significant update to Singapore's electoral operating system arrived in 1988. Prior to this, Singapore operated almost exclusively on single-member constituencies, SMCs, where candidates fought one-on-one battles. The government, looking at the shifting demographics and the rise of ethnic voting patterns in neighboring countries, proposed a radical change: the Group Representation Constituency, GRC. The stated rationale was benevolent and rooted in the necessity of multiracialism. The government argued that as the electorate became more mature, there was a risk that minority candidates, Malays, Indians, and others, would be marginalized if voters cast ballots purely along ethnic lines. To guarantee a wide representation of community views in Parliament, the GRC system mandated that political parties field teams of candidates rather than individuals. Crucially, the legislation requires that at least one member of the team in a GRC belong to a minority racial community, either the Malay community or the Indian and other minority communities. This ensures that the Parliament will always reflect the racial makeup of the nation, preventing a Chinese-only legislature. While the GRC system secured minority representation, its secondary effect was to dramatically fortify the incumbent. By aggregating constituencies into blocks of 3 to 6 seats, currently 4 or 5, the system fundamentally altered the risk profile of elections. In a GRC, voters cast a single vote for the entire team. It is a winner-takes-all system. If a party wins 50.1% of the vote in a 5-member GRC, they take 100% of the seats. This mechanic gave birth to the anchor minister strategy. The PAP deploys its most senior, popular, and heavyweight ministers to lead GRC teams. This creates a powerful coattail effect. A voter in Ang Mo Kio GRC, for instance, isn't just voting for the team. They are voting for the Prime Minister, Lee Hsien Loong, who led the team in 2020 and 2025. The immense popularity and administrative track record of the anchor minister effectively shields the other candidates on the slate, often new faces, civil servants, or backbenchers who might struggle in a solo contest. In the 2020 general election, the Ang Mo Kio GRC team, led by PM Lee, secured 71.91% of the vote against the Reform Party. This victory didn't just return the Prime Minister to Parliament, it swept 4 other PAP members, Daryl David, Gan Thiam Po, Ng Ling Ling, and Nadia Ahmad Samdin, into office on the same ticket. Without the GRC mechanism, each of these candidates would have to fight individual battles, exposing the party to localized grievances. With the GRC, they are armored by the Prime Minister's brand. Conversely, the GRC system imposes a steep tariff on opposition parties. To contest a GRC, a party cannot merely find one charismatic leader. They must assemble a team of 4 or 5 credible candidates, including a qualified minority candidate. For smaller parties with limited resources and recruitment networks, this is a logistical nightmare. It raises the minimum viable product for political competition. Furthermore, the winner-takes-all nature of the GRC exacerbates the disproportionality between votes won and seats won. In the 2020 election, the PAP won 61.2% of the popular vote, but took nearly 90% of the seats. The timeline of this dominance reveals that while the popular vote has fluctuated, dipping in 2011 and 2020, the parliamentary supermajority has remained rock solid, largely due to the stabilizing ballast of the GRCs. However, the system is not invincible. The 2020 general election provided a stark warning to the architects. The Workers' Party, WP, managed to capture the newly formed Sengkang GRC, defeating a PAP team that included 3 office holders, including a minister in the Prime Minister's office. This was a watershed moment. It proved that if the opposition could surmount the recruitment barrier and field a credible team, which included the popular economist James Lim, the winner-takes-all mechanism could backfire. Losing Sengkang meant the PAP lost 4 seats and a significant amount of executive talent in one blow. Fast forward to the 2025 general election, and the system appears to have stabilized. The PAP recovered ground, securing 65.6% of the popular vote and 87 seats. Yet, the opposition consolidated its gains, holding 12 seats, the highest number since independence. This suggests a new equilibrium where the GRC system still guarantees a supermajority, but no longer guarantees a total shutout. While the GRC system protects the political leadership, the financial security of the nation is guarded by a separate, even more fortified mechanism: the elected presidency and the protection of past reserves. Singapore's sovereign wealth is the stuff of legend. While the exact figures are often state secrets to prevent currency speculation, conservative estimates as of 2024 place the total national reserves at approximately 1.6 trillion Singapore dollars, 1.2 trillion US dollars. This includes assets managed by GIC, Temasek, and the Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS. To put this in perspective, this figure is multiples of the nation's GDP. For decades, this wealth was accessible to the government of the day. But in the 1980s, Lee Kuan Yew and his team foresaw a potential danger. What if a freak election produced a populist government that decided to raid the piggy bank to fund unsustainable welfare programs? The answer was to install a hardware lock on the vault. In 1991, the Constitution was amended to transform the presidency from a ceremonial role appointed by Parliament to a directly elected office with specific custodial powers. This created the two-key mechanism. The government of the day holds the first key, the ability to propose spending. The president holds the second key, the power to veto any budget or transaction that draws on past reserves. Past reserves are defined as reserves not accumulated by the government during its current term of office. This effectively ring-fences the savings of previous generations, allowing a government to spend only what it earns, unless it can convince the president that a crisis warrants unlocking the vault. This system is not merely theoretical. It has been operationally tested during the two greatest economic crises of the 21st century. In 2008, as the global financial system teetered on the brink, President S.R. Nathan gave his approval to back a 150 billion Singapore dollar guarantee on all bank deposits in Singapore using past reserves. This move was critical to preventing a bank run. Subsequently, in 2009, the government sought approval to draw down 4.9 billion Singapore dollars to fund a resilience package to save jobs. President Nathan turned the second key. In the end, the economy recovered faster than expected, and the government only used 4 billion Singapore dollars, which it fully returned to the reserves by the end of its term. The COVID-19 pandemic presented a threat on a different scale. In 2020 alone, the government introduced a rapid-fire series of 4 budgets: Unity, Resilience, Solidarity, and Fortitude, to keep the country on life support during the circuit breaker lockdowns and subsequent reopening. President Halima Yacob, after what she described as robust and intense discussions with the government and the Council of Presidential Advisors, approved the drawdown of past reserves multiple times. The scale was unprecedented. The government utilized approximately 40 billion Singapore dollars from past reserves to fund public health measures and economic support schemes. This massive injection of capital was only possible because the reserves existed and because the political mechanism to access them functioned smoothly. The implementation of this system has not been without friction. The first elected president, Ong Teng Cheong, 1993 to 1999, famously clashed with the government over the definition and listing of the assets he was supposed to protect. In a press conference in 1999, he revealed that when he asked for a list of the government's physical assets, the Accountant General informed him it would take 52 man-years to produce it. This incident highlighted the information asymmetry inherent in the system. The Guardian was being asked to guard a vault without knowing exactly what was inside. While procedures have since been streamlined, the reserves remain a black box to the public, protected by the Official Secrets Act and the prudence of the 2 key safeguards. To ensure that the second key is never held by a rogue actor, the eligibility criteria for the presidency were tightened significantly in 2016. Today, a private sector candidate must have served as the CEO of a company with at least 500 million Singapore dollars in shareholder equity. This incredibly high bar effectively limits the pool of potential presidents to top civil servants, who qualify automatically via the public sector track, and a tiny handful of corporate elites. The election of President Tharman Shanmugaratnam in 2023, a former senior minister and central banker, epitomizes this system. The Guardian is invariably a product of the establishment he is tasked with checking. In the United States, the passage of a bill is a labyrinthine ordeal involving 2 chambers, committees, filibusters, and potential presidential vetoes. It is a system designed for checks and balances, often at the expense of speed. Singapore is designed for velocity. Its parliament is unicameral. There is no Senate or upper house to delay legislation. The legislature consists of 108 members, but the core power lies with the 87 PAP MPs who form the government. This supermajority acts as a legislative turbocharger. Because the cabinet ministers are drawn from Parliament and the party whip ensures voting discipline, the executive effectively controls the legislature. Bills can move from introduction to presidential assent with blinding speed. The COVID-19 Continuity Bill, 2020. When the pandemic hit, the government needed to ensure Parliament could continue to function safely. A bill to amend the Constitution to allow Parliament to meet across multiple locations was introduced and fast-tracked in a single sitting on May 5, 2020. It passed with unanimous bipartisan support. The mechanism was activated immediately, demonstrating the system's ability to rewire its own constitutional hardware in real time to face a crisis. The Foreign Interference, Countermeasures Act, FICA, 2021. FICA is a sweeping law designed to combat foreign influence operations. It grants the Minister for Home Affairs significant powers to investigate and issue directions to social media platforms and individuals. Despite concerns from the opposition and civil society about the scope of these powers and the lack of judicial oversight, the bill was passed on October 4, 2021, after a 10-hour debate. The debate was vigorous, with the Workers' Party and PSP voting against it, but the outcome was never in doubt. The PAP's 83 seats, at the time, ensured passage. The Online Safety, Miscellaneous Amendments, Bill, 2022. Similarly, this bill, which empowers the government to order social media services to block access to harmful content, was passed in November 2022. The legislation grants the regulator authority to disable access to egregious content affecting users in Singapore, yet it cleared Parliament swiftly after a roughly 4-hour debate. Is there any check on this speed? The Constitution provides for the Presidential Council for Minority Rights, PCMR, a body tasked with scrutinizing bills to ensure they do not discriminate against any racial or religious community. However, the PCMR is often described as lacking teeth. Since its inception, it has never issued an adverse report on any legislation. Even if it did, Parliament can override the PCMR with a 2/3 majority, a threshold the PAP has comfortably exceeded for decades. Thus, the PCMR serves more as an advisory conscience than a legislative brake. In the modern era, political longevity requires more than just electoral victories. It requires control of the information space. Singapore has evolved a sophisticated legal framework to manage the narrative, culminating in the Protection from Online Falsehoods and Manipulation Act, POFMA, passed in 2019. POFMA is described by the government as a tool to combat fake news. It empowers ministers to issue correction directions against online statements they deem to be false statements of fact that harm the public interest. The mechanism is unique. Unlike defamation laws where a court decides truth before action is taken, POFMA empowers the executive, the minister, to act first. When a minister identifies a falsehood, they can order the user or platform to display a correction notice alongside the original post. The post usually remains up, but the truth, as defined by the government, travels with it. The user must comply immediately. If they wish to challenge the order, they must first apply to the minister to cancel it. Only if the minister refuses can they appeal to the High Court. This places the burden of action and legal cost on the user, creating a significant chilling effect on political speech. POFMA was deployed swiftly during the COVID-19 pandemic to correct misinformation regarding case numbers and government handling of the crisis, often on the same day the posts were made. However, its use has extended into the political arena. During election periods, correction directions have been issued against opposition politicians and alternative news sites, leading to accusations that the law is used to police political debate rather than just factual errors. Looking ahead to the 2025/2026 political cycle, the government has introduced new amendments to the Parliamentary Elections Act and the enactment of laws to tackle deepfakes and AI-generated misinformation. The Ministry of Digital Development and Information, MDDI, has made it clear that digitally manipulated content depicting candidates will be strictly regulated to preserve election integrity. This proactive legislation ensures that the government remains the referee in the increasingly chaotic digital arena. The general election of 2025 was a pivotal stress test for the 4G, fourth-generation leadership under Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, who took the helm in May 2024. Following the crisis election of 2020, where the PAP's vote share dipped to 61.2%, the 2025 polls were viewed as a referendum on the post-pandemic recovery and the leadership transition. The results indicate a successful stabilization of the regime. The PAP secured 65.6% of the popular vote, a solid rebound from 2020. In terms of seats, the ruling party won 87 out of 99 elected seats. However, the opposition Workers' Party, WP, also solidified its position. It retained the Aljunied GRC and Hougang SMC, and held on to the Sengkang GRC, expanding its total presence to 12 elected MPs, up from 10 in 2020. With the opposition securing 12 fully elected seats, the non-constituency MP/NCMP mechanism, which guarantees a minimum of 12 opposition members, was not triggered, leaving the opposition bench composed entirely of elected representatives. The 2025 results suggest that Singapore has entered a new political equilibrium. The freak election fear, that the PAP might lose power overnight, has receded. The GRC system continues to deliver a supermajority, converting a 65% vote share into an 88% seat share. Yet, the electorate has signalled a permanent desire for checks and balances. The days of the clean sweep, where the PAP wins every seat, as it did from 1968 to 1980, are definitively over. The system has adapted. It has accepted a larger, more vocal opposition presence, 12 fully elected MPs, as a pressure release valve, while retaining the supermajority required to amend the constitution and pass legislation at speed.